All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Welcome to the madness. It is one of those days where we've had some maddening, wild, technical things going on. No need to get into them specifically, but let me just say that our mothership computer has gone down. I know.
Oh, no.
I know. I need a minute. I do. I need a minute.
Mothership.
So we're in a backup kind of throw together job, but I think under the circumstances, it's not so awful. So thank you. We try to go the extra distance for you. And here we are on the backup to the backup. So welcoming Kim, welcoming Albert, welcoming you. We have David Cay Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner. Albert, could you please, in all the frenzy leading up to the show this morning, I sent Steve a link last night, but if you could send him another one, I'd appreciate it.
I'm on it.
I thank you for that, sir. And David Cay Johnston is what I was going to say is in the 11 o'clock hour. He's the Pulitzer Prize winner, best-selling author. I kind of want to talk to him about several things that are going on. Yeah, we want to talk about Palestine, how that's being handled and how it's being politicized. And of course, it's being destroyed, these solutions are, by the politicization. So we'll get into a little bit of that. But also related to that is the fact that there are major lobbyists for, in this case, Norfolk Southern, and isn't that the name of the company, Norfolk Southern, Kim? I
don't pronounce the L though. I just say Norfolk Southern.
Okay. Anyway,
Norfolk.
But that's the name of the company, and
yes, that's the name of the company. Sorry, I didn't mean to critique your pronunciation.
Please, yeah. I can't wait till your newscast starts so I can go after that.
Oh God!
No. Seriously, but I just want to make sure it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, a lobbyist for them is a commentator on CNN. This guy's showing up everywhere, and he's essentially taking the light off of the railroad company when it comes to whose blame it is, and also normalizing this. This stuff happens all the time. As I say, there's a real opportunity here to bring back some of the safeguards for these communities, regulations, right, on the braking, on the size of the trains, on the degree to which communities through which these trains are passing are alerted to the fact that there is a toxic payload. All of those things and all of these opportunities are lost the more it's normalized. So anyway, we're going to get into that. I want to touch on David Cay Johnston because there is this revolving door, as you're aware, between lobbyists, politicians, and commentators. And I find it galling. When I watch that Chris Christie on ABC This Week, the George Stephanopoulos show, this guy's running for president and he's good on TV, which is why he's there on the panel. And yet he's characterizing the Biden administration policies as, socialist policies. I mean, repeatedly, he talks about it. It's clearly a talking point. Well, the socialist policies of the Biden administration. So when I see that kind of thing, I think as a constant reminder, oh yeah, he's not a real neutral commentator. So we'll get to a conversation about journalism a little bit with David Cay Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winning distinguished journalist, that in the 11 o'clock hour. Speaking of distinguished, over 30 years in the Bay Area. Can we do it right off the top, Albert? Can I check in with Brother Moskowitz?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. How about it? A round of applause for the great Steve Moskowitz, everyone. He has been with us since the beginning. Yes. And Steve, we talk about the services of your company. We've seen them expand even during the time that, we've had a relationship over the time that you've been on Station X and here. You're really a full service business well beyond just tax preparation.
That's right. We do everything in tax, but, and because of that, over the years, so many people have said to me, Steve, we know you represent people that are in trouble with their taxes and can't pay their taxes and getting audited. But what about doing regular old tax returns for somebody that files every year and is not in trouble and doesn't owe any taxes from a previous year? And I said, well, of course. That's what we built the practice on. Before I was a tax attorney, I was a CPA. And we go ahead and do regular tax returns, but not in the regular way. Most tax returns, and that's why I became a tax attorney, not to do it the same way as everybody was, because, I was a CPA before I went to law school. Most people just move the numbers from one place to the tax return. And we do it differently. We're looking to save you money. For example, even now in 2023, we might be able to do some things that can save you money on your 2022 taxes. Well, how can that be? 2022 is already passed. I can't write a check for 2022. And some things, for example, if you qualify for a pension, we can set it up in 2023. You can fund it in 2023 and still deduct it in 2022. Or you may be entitled to other things you'd overlook. That's why a lot of times with new clients, we'll go ahead and amend tax returns, because we can amend the federal up to 3 years back, in California 4 years back. And so many times people say to me, Steve, is this something new? Because my previous person never did this. And I say, well, no, it's not new. It's been around for a lot of years. But the other person missed it. Because a lot of people, when they do tax returns, it's mass production, do the same thing as was done last year, give me your forms, and they don't talk to them and find out. That's what we're all part about. So yes, we do regular tax returns, but not in a regular way. And look, tomorrow is March. 2 months just went like that. And, the corporate returns are due March 15th, unlike the individual returns that are due April 15th. So we're ready to talk to you.
Yeah, and we talk about corporations. We've touched on them before. When you have a small business, you can incorporate, and how you do it and how you set that up has everything to do with your ability to increase your bottom line. So there are those opportunities as well.
Absolutely, we do that for clients too. And there's other reasons to become a corporation, like asset protection, because in today's world, everybody likes to sue for everything, especially business people. And we want to see if we can have asset protection. And that's true for whether we have a corporation for a business or an LLC for a rental property.
It's the last category that I think we have a lot of listeners and viewers who might fall into. That is to say, they're landlords, or they might have a small place that just provides them a small amount of income, but there's a way to protect that income and to protect that asset, is what you're saying.
And Mark, that's so true, because one lawsuit can wipe out a lifetime of savings and earnings, just ruin your life.
It's 888 tax deal to reach Steve Moskowitz and his crew. And if you're anywhere in the United States or anywhere in California, Steve is there for you. 888 tax deal, 888-TAX-DEAL. Also online, MoskowitzLLP.com, MOSKOWITZ, MoskowitzLLP.com. Steve, thanks so much. Love talking to you. Appreciate it. Okay. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Yeah, right on.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is the Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
We're so excited that you're with us. If you want to reach the show for any reason, you can do it at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. And I want to get into the snowpack, because the snowpack is inching toward record levels. And even as that's the case, we look at how it is going to impact our drought. So let me just spend a moment on that. And Kim, if you would, if we have, I can't see the chat. I'm on this different system today as a backup,
Sure.
as you know.
Yeah.
So really can't interact with the audience the way I might otherwise. So maybe we can even put some time aside. And if there are comments or other things that need to be picked up, please let me know if I forget to mention something or whatever. So, but meantime, we are looking at remarkable snow levels and remarkable amounts of water in that snow. Those are the two components: how much snow has fallen, and then also what's the moisture content of that snow. So we'll have an insane Sierra snowpack. The statewide snowpack is 181% of average, and it's 156% of average for the entire season. And we're not through the entire season. In fact, February is typically our wettest month. In some parts of the Sierra, snowpack levels are even on pace to exceed totals for the 82-83 season.
Was that like a record-setting moment?
Yeah, that's the biggest winter in terms of snowpack and rain in the modern era.
Yeah.
Where was I in 82, 83?
Oh, you were.
I was doing a live shot on the Golden Gate Bridge for KON when they were NBC back then. I'm standing there getting drenched in some of my finest work, if I might say.
Well,
I actually remember that, if I can relate one story. Kim, maybe you'll be able to appreciate this, although I think you're probably not as maybe as sharp-edged as I might have been at this. I never was sharp-edged on the outside. But they said, Mark, now I was the weather guy, okay?
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Okay, so it was Cron back then. Now Cron's NBC Bay Area, it's a different station. That is to say, NBC is the different station. Back then, Cron was owned by the San Francisco Chronicle, and they were NBC. Not important. I'm just trying to give you, kind of recalibrate. Big newsroom, a lot of people.
right.
They said, Mark, here I am, the weather guy. We want you to go out to the Golden Gate Bridge and do a live remote and do your weather from there. Now, this is a record series of storms with insane inundating rains, and same in terms of snow. The information is breaking, I'm talking about warnings and watches, etc., pretty quickly. And I'm there at Cron. Now, it's not far. Cron was on Van Ness and, let's say near Goff. So it's not a long way to the Golden Gate Bridge, but I kind of felt like I don't want to leave the studio. Also, I don't want to go stand in the rain just for the theater of it, which is really what it is, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's why they sent the reporter up to Blue Canyon at Tahoe, too.
Thank you.
Look at the poor sap standing out in the storm. Yeah.
Exactly. So I had a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I could make those comments like, hey, I got to be here with and so I felt as though, because I just had started there, I felt like, you know what, dude, go do it. And then after you do it, make the point like, hey, I did it, but in the future, I really would like to be closer to the information. I think that's what we owe to the community, and I think that's the best place for me.
Sure.
So that's what I did. I went out, I did the damn live shot. That's why I remember 82, 83. It was an El Nino year, okay? It was the big revelation, really, about El Nino. El Nino had not been talked about prior to that. Anyway, meteorology memories. I could go on all day. Anyway, the point is that was the big season, and this season actually may surpass those totals in terms of snowpack in the Sierra.
What?
Yeah. The entire Sierra will continue to see snow. Are there still snow showers up there today?
There are snow showers in the Tahoe area today. In the Sierra.
That's what I mean. Yeah, in the Sierra. Yeah. And I'll remind you that March snow could keep the snowpack going, particularly in the southern part of the state. So the long-range forecast models, which have been fairly accurate this season, but typically not a huge confidence in some of those long-range forecast models, they're suggesting wet, cold weather for March. Mm-hmm. So it could be a real opportunity to make back some of this snowpack. But this brings us to the larger question. Is the drought busted because of this huge amount of rain and snow we're getting? The answer is, in the short term, it helps, but in the longer term, it's a much, much tougher climb. Many parts of the state are seeing reservoirs recharged. There was record low precipitation, I'll remind you, the last 3 years, right? And the aquifers, frankly, that have been depleted through the years in any number of ways, as you know, they've been depleted by commercial enterprises, essentially businesses sticking a pipe in the ground and just pumping water out. We've talked about that before, and then selling it back to us. I mean, this is these are bad actors in my view, but it was legal at the time. Now and when I say at the time, it's only been a couple of years since that has been made something that they can't do. Where the Nestle company comes to California and they stick a pipe in the ground, they pump out water from these aquifers and they sell it back to us as Aquafina or whatever.
Right.
Anyway, the aquifers,
and they get it for free.
that's it.
Really?
I mean, it's insane. Yeah. But the aquifers are a long way from recharging, and the forests are dry. This is a real problem for us that extends well beyond one season's ability to cure it, I guess is what I'm saying. The climate scientist Leroy Westerling said the definition of drought and where we stand sort of depends on what you care about. Yes, reservoirs are filling up, but you can look at it from the point of view of water storage, from the point of view of agriculture, from the point of view of ecosystems, from the point of view of wildfires. All these things have slightly different profiles. So climate experts and water managers agree that while the winter has been exceptional from a lot of perspectives, it may not cure a lot of these ongoing issues that essentially relate to a mega drought in the West. So when you look at the bottom line from a drought busting standpoint, you realize many facets to it, right? There are the local facets, where we get our water from, the Hetch Hetchy reservoir system, which provides so much water for us. These reservoirs, as they're recharged, do really cure our short-term drought problem. But when you look at irrigation and you look at, as I was saying, aquifers and forests and vegetation around the state and fire potential, tree die-offs that occur, as you know, in record numbers in the modern era, it doesn't really address it, strangely. I mean, it addresses it, but it doesn't cure it. So they suggest that same climatologist, depending on the hydrology, an aquifer can require years, if not decades, of wet weather for enough water to soak into the ground so the supply is recharged. The state's groundwater basins have notoriously been overpumped. This is what I was saying before. Farmers that get water from the Central Valley Project also will likely not get as much supply as they want this year. They'll get more than last year. But Lake Shasta, the centerpiece of the federal project, is fuller than it's been, but still just 84% of its historical average. The Central Valley Project managers have estimated that most customers will get just 35% of the water they requested. On the side, many water agencies with supplies in the southern and central Sierra are in good shape, including San Francisco. The officials at San Francisco's Public Utilities Commission say they expect their water system, which includes the Hetch Hetchy, which I was mentioning, to completely fill this spring. Most water agencies have not yet stopped asking their customers for cutbacks, but suppliers are expected to revisit drought policies soon. Several communities put in place these steep water reductions during the past 2 years, and now they're looking at potentially rolling those back.
I don't know if it's time for that yet, but okay.
Yeah, I know. It's one of the things that they are quick to do, that is to say, roll it back. And there are a lot of right-wing pundits, particularly on radio. I've heard, I know one of them. He's a friend of mine, and he just goes, hey, are we done with this? The drought thing? I mean, my God, my basement is flooding, and we're still talking about it being a drought. You see how it's so much more complicated than just what's happening now. It's go ahead.
It really doesn't, as you were talking about, take into account our long-term problems. And when you remove the restrictions, what you're telling people is it's okay to go back to normal, use. And so people then aren't mindful of being careful with water as a resource. And then we just suck it all up and we're back in the same spot that we've always been. So we need to learn to treat it differently all the time, not just during a drought year.
That's exactly right. And sadly, we're in a mega drought. I mean, it is that. It extends way beyond the last even decade. And for that reason, what you're saying makes total sense. Studies have shown that the period since 2000 has been the driest in the West in at least 1,200 years. So it's difficult for one wet year to improve that situation. So the answer is, depending on your demands, and depending on what you're most concerned with, these storms have addressed the drought, but not busted the drought. So,
Can I show you some pictures?
please.
And as a self-correction, yesterday I said this was in the Sierra foothills. I got an email from Stephen who says, nope, this is Jacksonville, Oregon, 10 miles from the Oregon border in a place called Upper Applegate, where apparently they get snow, but not as much snow as they've been getting. So here it is. He's measuring it up. The snowpack in Jacksonville.
That's a foot of snow?
Oregon, yeah. And I'm sorry for getting that wrong yesterday. So thank you for allowing me to correct myself.
Yes, how dare you?
Look at that. How exciting.
That is
wrong,
really
it
great.
was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
I did think her apology was okay, but
That's not
Sorry,
fake.
Stephen.
That's
My
real.
bad.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
My bad. I'm sorry. Is that what you said?
My bad. I'm sorry.
This is just great.
And I
love-
want
so
to
this is Oregon. Where
apologize
this is
to the
going on.
Asian community, the Asian
Yeah.
American
Oregon.
community.
I did
Yeah.
think Kim could have uncorked an apology to the Asian community. An Israeli water expert said years ago that if California really understood the nature of its water problems, it would be desalinating Pacific Ocean water. We should really consider that. That's from Portions Redacted. Let me speak to that for a second. We've addressed it on the show many times, but let me just address it one more time. Desalination is just like the drought problem is multifaceted. Let's just address one facet. It's completely destructive of the environment in the ocean that you're taking the water from. And let me just finish. Not just the way in which you're destroying the immediate area from around the pipe, which is drawing the water in, but also you're desalinating. So what are you doing? You're taking salt out of the water. So what happens to that salt? There's a lot of it. You're talking about a tremendous amount.
You dump it back in or you bottle
Right.
it up and sell it. What do you do?
So there's too much just to bottle it up and sell it, or bottle it up and truck it somewhere. So you have to dump it back in. So you're resalinating some part of an area. And in resalinating, you are beginning the process of killing off everything there, because you're now dumping such tremendous amounts of salt back into the water that the water becomes, if you will, toxified. Okay. And that process continues and continues, right? I mean, this is not just like for a month or two. This is going on forever. So you can see how the ripple effect extends. But let's say we don't care about that. Or we're so desperate we can't care about that anymore. The energy required to run a desalination plant right now doesn't make it cost effective. It's so expensive to power it. So if you actually look into this, Portions Redacted, I think you'll see the issues with desalination. Might desalination be the answer? Part of the answer. Are they doing it in the Middle East? Yeah. Are they doing it in places where they don't give an S about what's happening with the environment? I mean, I think UAE is doing it, Saudis are doing it, Israelis are doing it. And clearly, when I say don't give an S, they prioritize their water needs over their needs to protect the environment. So to that extent, I get it. Maybe we'll need to make that leap too. But when you say we should consider it, look at it. And when you actually consider it, there are a lot of intricacies to it that might mitigate against jumping right into desalination. So
I also read the cost of desalination. If you look at, price per gallon of water, shoots the price way up. It's a very expensive process.
well, that's what I'm saying. And that expense is about energy. That's
Yeah.
the reason it's expensive. Okay, let's be clear about that. As John Rothman, let's be very clear. And I want to state this with the utmost importance. The cost is because of the energy consumption. By the way, John Rothman will be with us tomorrow at his now newly assigned regular time, which is 10:35, I believe.
We got a jam-packed show tomorrow, actually. We got, I think we were moving David Katz tomorrow also, right?
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten. Wow. David Katz tomorrow. I thought we had who's the author? Don't we have the Charles Schultz's son or something tomorrow? What's that story, Albert?
That's exciting.
Yeah, I think we're just super packed tomorrow with guests.
Can you help me with that? One of the things we haven't really, I feel that we need a master plan or something. Maybe we can get that. I feel like I might have double booked somebody. Is that possible, Albert?
Let me call Rothman. I know he'll be very understanding of it.
No, I think I've double booked. So yeah, because we can move people. We've got the Charles Schultz son, all right, and then we also have the movement of cats, which I hadn't accounted for in my big situation room. All right, we'll take care of that. Anyway, we do have a packed show tomorrow, and Thursday should be a big show as well. So smash the like button like a boss. Thank you for being here.
With your iron rod.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different setup technically for us today, but hopefully it's not too distracting. Kim's News next as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now, we don't have the full range of sounders. I think that sounder is supposed to be the big medieval sounder, you know.
Oh, that's all
right. Do
right.
You hear that? Do you hear that? You don't hear it when I'm playing it?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay, well, go ahead then. Okay,
I did. Gone now. But yes, yeah. I heard it was a big finish and a whoop-de-doo with the news. I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show, and this report, sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Let's get into student loan debt because the Supreme Court right now is questioning the Biden administration's plan to cancel $400 billion in student loan debt. Justice Neil Gorsuch pressing the U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar, on whether the administration took into account the interests of those who didn't take out loans to go to college. Meantime, U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar claimed two plaintiffs in another case have no legal standing to bring their challenge. So back and forth it goes with the arguments today. A new report finds that 60% of all U.S. adults are living paycheck to paycheck. According to Lending Club, that's down slightly from last year. Despite inflation, it suggests some belt tightening by consumers help give their budgets just a little bit of breathing room. President Biden set to visit Selma, Alabama. Here's the bridge there, the Edmund Pettus Bridge. President marking the 58th year since Bloody Sunday. The White House provided few other details about the trip this weekend. The annual event commemorates, of course, the violent 1965 clash between civil rights protesters and police that eventually led Congress to passing the Voting Rights Act. Now, sometimes some people might say they're trying to take votes away again. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is out with a new book. Adding to speculation, he's planning a 2024 presidential run. They always put out a book, don't they? This one is called The Courage to Be Free, Florida's Blueprint for America's Revival. The release of the book coincides with a new video touting his success as a Republican governor while slamming President Biden and his policies. No, not running for president at all. No.
There's never been anything like this.
Officials from New York and New Jersey, on the other hand, are working on a bill to fix a budget shortfall in the World Trade Center Health Program. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the program that helps 9/11 first responders will need at least another $2 billion as soon as 2028. It would also expand coverage by those who responded to the Pentagon and to Shanksville, Pennsylvania as well. And the family of actor Tom Sizemore, I don't have a picture of Mr. Sizemore, Albert, wondering if maybe we could get one up, but they're reportedly considering end-of-life decisions now. He remains in a coma. We haven't talked a lot about this. I knew that he had suffered a health issue. I'm kind of waiting to see if he was going to be okay. But a statement made by Tom Sizemore's representative this week says he suffered a brain aneurysm as a result of a stroke on February 18th. He has been, again, on life support ever since, and his family now considering end-of-life decisions, they say. So, Tom Sizemore.
Jeez.
Yeah. Sad situations. Feels like we've lost a lot of really prominent actors lately. This report
He's a young guy, too. He's 61, is that what you said?
61. Yeah.
Man, that's just crazy.
You know, it just shows anything can happen to anyone at any moment.
I hate that. That's one of the things I hate. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I like.
Yeah.
One of the things that I hate is the anything can happen at any time part.
I'm sorry. This is the news where all the bad things we tell you about that.
When you tuck your kids in at night, Kim, do you say, Mommy loves you, Daddy loves you?
But Mommy could get hit by a Mack truck tomorrow. So
well, I don't know if you want to say that, but or do you generalize and go, just remember, anything can happen at any time?
No. We don't talk about that. We just say, I love you, and good night.
You want kids to feel secure, don't you, Kim?
I do.
You want kids to feel as though everything is good and that,
there's that knowledge floating around out there that life is precious, but we don't want to hone in on it every single moment, right?
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of putting to bed, let's put this newscast to bed. This report.
How dare you try to wrap me up when I'm trying to make a broader philosophical point?
I'm sorry. Did you have more comments?
No, not now. Not now.
This report, sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve, whom we adore, has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, Steve's the one. Did I make you upset? 888-TAX-DEAL, Moskowitz LLP.
Not going to cry.
You are crying. MoskowitzLLP.com. You can see him at the bottom of your screen right there. Well, you could until it went away. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is the Mark Thompson Show. Be gentle with Mark today.
No, I think I can do Kim on.
Yeah,
baby.
Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you all who have smashed the like button. And for those of you who have joined us for the first time,
smash it with your iron rod.
That like button is your friend. It's free, and we appreciate it. We're a crowd-funded show. We took our show from the radio and moved it to YouTube. And we took Kim and we took Albert and, all of our pals from KGO. And if you watch long enough, you'll see them pop up. We mentioned Rothman's coming tomorrow. And we've sort of reconstituted the show, but we're crowdfunded, right? We have one sponsor in Steve Moskowitz, and we're looking for other sponsors as well. If you have an interest in sponsorship, you can reach us by email, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Yeah. And all kinds of sponsorship opportunities exist for you. And whatever business you have in the Bay Area or beyond, we're happy to promote you. Maybe you're a individual proprietor you could be a contractor. You could be what are some of the other jobs, Kim, that people could
run a bar?
You could run a bar.
Right?
There's the Red Jack. Those are they were early adopters. Yeah, they came with us from KGO. Show
News, sponsored by the Red Jack Saloon.
Yeah.
Stop in for the drink special.
Idea, but it just might work.
Right?
I feel as though they already show us a lot of love.
They do. Maybe I'll give them a free sponsorship.
I don't want to lean on the, too much. They have a Martini, which already spins off money. If you go to the Red Jack, this is a bar in San Francisco, and you order the Martini, a little bit of that is spun off to us, and it's actually, they've sent us some money. I mean, it really has happened. And Nikki has one also. She has a drink for her channel. So anyway, but if you're looking for a possible sponsorship opportunity and want to just kick it around with us, we'd love to talk to you about it. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Otherwise, it's super stickers and super chats and all that stuff. So I wanted to mention a couple of things that are going on today. I talked about the drought, and I talked about the snows. The coronavirus emergency is ending soon, right, Kim? I mean, I think
actually it's today. where
So-
many of the emergency provisions expire today.
So that means that probably it'll have no effect on your life if from the standpoint of masks and all the rest, because that stuff's sort of been rolled back. But it will have an effect on those things, and Kim has mentioned this in newscasts, that are related to your ability to claim it on your insurance, your ability certainly to get free testing and all of that, right? It's going to be...
Testing won't be free.
Mhm.
And vaccines also likely not free anymore. You'll have to pay for that. And the ability of the government to do what Governor Gavin Newsom said, which is have it be on a toggle light switch, right? Where if COVID cases rise, then we put the masking effects back into place type of thing. That's gone. So they would have to jump through a lot more hoops in order to put restrictions upon society.
I see. Okay, that's interesting. Also, in keeping with the coronavirus story that we did yesterday, which is about another government agency, and I understand this, with low confidence, we make this determination that the likely origins of the COVID-19 virus were associated with the Wuhan lab experiment, an accident at the Wuhan lab. Well, in keeping with that, Dr. Fauci says we may never know the origin of the COVID-19 virus, despite this lab leak report, the new report from the Energy Department. And again, if you missed it, the Energy Department, while it's called the Energy Department, they do have access to a lot of intelligence. In fact, probably better, I would suggest better intelligence for this kind of thing, sleuthing the beginnings of the COVID-19 virus, than, for example, the CIA. They do a lot of personal intelligence. Like they have contacts and they have, agents, if you will. I mean, the sleuthing associated with CIA intelligence is more in that area. Whereas the Energy Department, they have intelligence that looks at, if you will, more of a jetliner view of things. FBI came to the same kind of conclusion. They have their own intelligence techniques. So all of these agencies have different methods. But in any case, back to Dr. Fauci.
That's not fake. That's real.
He, not a fan, as you might imagine, of the U.S. Energy conclusion, the Energy Department's conclusion that COVID-19 likely leaked from a Chinese lab. I mean, he's been arguing against that the entire time. Right. He and Rand Paul went around and around on whether we're involved in supercharging these viruses in these lab situations.
What you are talking about.
He's 82, and he says that the intelligence agencies aren't aligned on the lab leak theory, and they've not arrived at a definitive answer, so we may never know. Quote, "We must all keep an open mind to all possibilities about the origins of the coronavirus. We may never know the source of the outbreak." I mean, honestly, that's a more measured and softer statement on it than he's ever had before. He's been I'd suggest he's been pretty stern about his position on the origins of the coronavirus and the wet market there. But here they even note this. Fauci dismissed the lab leak theory early in the pandemic and consistently repeated his belief that the virus most likely occurred naturally. At the onset of the pandemic, Fauci called the lab leak theory a, quote, shiny object that will go away.
By naturally, he means the wet market, right? Where humans eat animals?
Correct.
Okay.
That there's an intermediate host in that wet market, and that made the jump to the human population. They could never find that intermediate host. It was talked about bats, remember the bat soup thing? And, early on, because Trump, as usual, Trump didn't help. And it was because he was such a divisive figure, and he was such a moron, and he is such a moron, that, and believe me, a moron with superpowers, okay? I'm not saying what I think is a clunky con. I mean, you can just kind of tell he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's just, this word salad junk that he puts together, and there's never been anything like this, and he knew nothing, and all of the people who emerged from that administration and wrote books with any degree of unvarnished honesty all talk about how stupid he is, okay? But they also talk about how egotistical he is and all the other things. And again, but his superpower is the ingratiating himself, and you get caught in. He's a mobster. So his divisiveness, and for so many in America who saw him as someone who didn't know what he was talking about, when he used to talk about China involved with the COVID-19 virus, it was viewed immediately, and this is where the media didn't help, as racist. And by the way, as usual, it's fair. There's a little bit of truth to the fact that when you call it the China virus, sadly, in this country, we were seeing a spike in Asian hate crime.
Yeah.
So you're kind of caught. In the media, you don't want to message that sort of thing related to China for the reasons I just mentioned, and yet it did emerge from China. It looks as though at least the virus's escape from that lab might have been the origins of COVID-19 based on this new energy report, based on the FBI conclusions, etc.
But they said, the Energy Department report, they said low confidence.
Right.
So even they don't know. And because it's
Well, they
China,
didn't- No. They didn't say they didn't know. They said low confidence. If
Low
they
confidence.
didn't, there's a difference. If they didn't know, they would say, we can't determine the origins of COVID-19 virus. There's a difference. They made a conclusion.
But I wonder why you would make the conclusion if you don't have very much confidence in your conclusion. You know, you're telling me if you don't have very much confidence to back up your statement, then I just wonder why make the statement at all. It's either is or it isn't. What you're saying is maybe we don't have a lot of confidence in that. You know,
I mean, you and I just completely disagree on this. I mean,
Okay.
There's so much more nuance and sadly gray area when it comes to a lot of this stuff. I don't think it's
Right.
like, well, if you can't tell me 100%, then you should say, then go out with a statement saying you don't know where it came from.
no, you could say the evidence is pointing in this direction.
Well, that's what they've said.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they've said.
I don't
yeah.
know how much stock to put in it when they come out with it and come out with the statement and say low confidence.
That's fair. I agree with
Yeah.
that. Like, I don't know how much stock to put in it. I agree with
Right.
that. But the idea somehow that, well, they look low confidence. They don't really know. Oh, wait a minute. A lot of intelligence information went into determining this likely origin of COVID-19. They didn't say they didn't know. They said, we think its origins were in a Wuhan lab leak, and we have sadly low confidence about that. But nonetheless, that's where the tea leaves kind of settle. That's really what they said. Now, I agree. Like, I don't know how much confidence to have in their low confidence,
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying.
it's
Yeah.
a different thing than saying, oh, you know what, guys,
Yeah.
if you can't come up with something with a little more confidence than low confidence, then you should keep your mouth shut. I don't know about that. I mean, I think all of this does help point to it. And the reason it's important is the origins of these pandemics do relate to how you'll treat the next pandemic. And don't you think, and I was talking about this yesterday, and I promise I won't retill this soil today, that we should have maintained some presence in the WHO. We had scientists over in Wuhan, and we pulled them. This is all part of the wash away Obama policy of Trump. He wanted to get rid of anything that was associated with the last administration. You know, we don't spend a lot of time bashing on Trump, but look, it was on his watch that all of this happened. And so everything related to the how-to on pandemics and even the personnel associated with the Obama administration when it came to the WHO, NIH, et cetera, a lot of them were erased. So I think it is important to know, even with low confidence, where the likely origins of these viruses are. So, Fauci claimed in the same remarks that the scientific response to the pandemic was, quote, a resounding success with the rapid development of effective vaccines and treatments, but said the public health response was lacking because of problems in tracking the virus in real time. Of course, it became politicized, and the whole gain of function research thing, which I think was a fair line of questioning. You remember when we talked about Rand Paul? I hate Rand Paul, but he's kind of right.
What?
that the supercharged viruses were being worked on in that lab. As American funding going to that lab through a circuitous route, but it was getting there. And,
a lot of comments in the chat circling around our relationship with China right now and the timeliness in releasing this report.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's probably less than timely, right? Is that what they're saying?
Or is there something to it? Is the reason this report came out right now have something to do with U.S.-China relations?
Interesting. That's a great question, for David Cay Johnston. Kim, will you remind me to ask him, or will you ask him, please, when he's here? Circuitous is a ding word. I don't have my ding. Thank you. There you go. Well done.
Dinger. There's the dinger. Humdinger.
Yeah. Dealt with it as best we could with the tools we had. I see that Wes is saying that. Yeah. I mean, I think that is true. I mean, you're also dealing with the country that we have, which is a divided country, anxious to literally pick up arms against those that disagree. And they're animated by any number of media outlets. We're seeing now with the Fox News channel how completely bogus they knew information was related to the election. And I think you see in that testimony, because it's related to Dominion software, so that is limited to the election talk. But you see in their testimony from Rupert Murdoch, from Sean Hannity, from everyone, that they're ready to run with bogus stuff.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? I mean,
I think people should feel lied to and manipulated, and it should show that they're not out for the truth. They're out for they're just out to spread their own certain message, right? It's all propaganda.
And you begin to not know what's true and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
That's how all the movements within the COVID-19 pandemic policies began to run together, right? Impinging on our freedoms, forcing me to be vaccinated, the natural immunity, herd immunity. You began to, and then of course origins, so where did it come from? You began to lose the thread of how seriously, it's a little bit what you were saying, how seriously should I take that doctor who is the creator of mRNA, who says, these vaccines are not good, you know what I mean, or whatever. Vaccine was brought to market too quickly, or whatever. You began to see it, and others who say, "Hey, look, in a perfect world, I'd love to test this vaccine for 10 years or 20 years." We don't have that kind of timeline, so you began to see all of these different news outlets running with different things, and then of course you add the internet and various internet platforms and social media platforms, and what a mess. To navigate it was not easy. I still think this. What do you think of this, Kim? And what do you think of this? I ask you, watching and listening. If Trump had come out hard against COVID, instead of trying to explain it away, where, we only have 4 cases and, in the spring it's all going to go away. Remember, he was trying to sort of play it down.
It's just a cold. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. And that became...
And he said he was trying to be a cheerleader. He was trying to keep our spirits up.
Even though he knew differently. But okay. But let's say that he'd come out hard and said, we're going to beat this thing because I've got the best administration to do it, and blah, blah. He did that later with, you remember he had lined up all those admirals and generals with all of their medals and stuff. And he said, and it was all for show. There was actually no distribution system in place on the part of the federal government. It was just literally a photo op and a BS news conference. But anyway, what if he'd come out strongly and said, I've got the best researchers. We're going to have the best vaccine in place. This is going to be a great way to tackle this. We're going to put these social distancing and masking measures in place as well. And we are going to beat this and be the best country on earth when it comes to handling this pandemic. If he had said that, instead of waffling and then realizing, my constituency they don't want to be told what to do, so the mask thing, I'm going to play. He was really cheating toward trying to explain it away. Won't affect your life. Don't worry about it. Masks. I don't know. He was had he not been that way, had he leaned in aggressively, I wonder what would have happened. I wonder what kind of country this would have been through COVID. It might have been very different. He was so divisive. He was divisive to the point that people rejected the lab leak theory. People rejected any number of things associated with Trump. If it had Trump's fingerprints on it, most of us thought, I don't want anything to do with anything. Literally, I view whatever he says from the opposite perspective, right?
You have Mindy saying it would have felt like we could actually have had faith in his leadership. And Daniel says he would have been reelected, unfortunately, in my opinion.
That's exactly right. He probably could have been reelected.
Russ said you probably would have saved some lives doing that.
Oh, my God, yes. I mean,
And what ended up happening was it felt like we had no leadership, no one taking it seriously during a critical moment in history.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It was truly a travesty. And you think of the lives saved in California by the city of San Francisco and Governor Gavin Newsom, love him or hate him, California moved fast, really fast, to close things down at the beginning before we knew what was going on, and probably saved a lot of lives because of that. And I think even if you look back and think, how could we have done better by our businesses? How could we have done better by our children? You can't say that anything that was done wasn't done to help people live, to help preserve human life. And I feel like that was not done at the federal level.
I think that's a fair point. I also think it's fair to point out that there was an unclear policy in the way many of these restrictions were placed on businesses and on communities and churches and places of worship and all this thing. And it was viewed as unfair, but it's also viewed as an odd policy. Like it wasn't. That's what I felt would be revealed in a 9/11 X-ray. They should do a not 9/11. Do it like the 9/11 Commission. That's why I had 9/11 in my head. Yeah. Do a COVID-19 X-ray. Do a COVID-19, if you'll pardon the expression, post-mortem to figure out. Now it's not really quite post. I mean, we're still in the middle of it. But I'm just saying, look at the policies and look at how they could have been improved upon. The 9/11 Commission did their report. And I feel as though there should be some kind of official report on the way COVID-19 policies were put in place. Because one of the issues, and I think Kim's 100% right when she talks about the fact that, in general, I think these policies came from the right place. They were trying to control the spread and trying to address the issues of COVID-19. But some of the control, some of the policies, some of the things that were done were viewed as haphazard and unfair. For example, you had tremendous pressure to get back to places of worship. Remember?
Yep.
And yet places, entertainment venues were still closed. Like, musicians, comedians, etc. Entertainers weren't allowed to have their shows. So it was a weird thing. They opened the churches, but not, it was you began to see that. That's just one that comes to mind. There are a lot of examples like that. Talk to restaurant owners, talk to other
salons.
Business owners. Yeah, thank you. So I'd love to see, I think you're right, Kim, when you talk about the fact that it came from the right place. Of course, then there's moments like the Newsom French Laundry moment that did not help him, So, hey, David Cay Johnston, what is the question we're going to ask him? Did I ask you to remember?
Oh, we're going to ask him... What are you going to ask him?
This is why I
ask him something about the origin.
Other people.
What the hell they do it for?
I ask other people to remember stuff, so I just ask one thing one time.
We're going to ask him about the timing of the report and U.S.-China relations.
Thank you. That's exactly what we wanted.
It takes me half a second.
Yeah, you had it. You had it. You get full credit. All right. Smash the like button like a boss if you would.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Kim's News. And then we'll hopefully David Cay Johnston will join.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I guess that's the best we'll be able to do.
Our news theme is broken.
Now, let me ask you something. You don't hear it when I do that?
No, we don't hear it.
You don't hear
no.
that? Oh, okay.
Well, it kind of went off when I clicked the picture, so I don't know if it's our system or what. But
yeah, we have a backup system working today, so sorry about that. Some of the sounds and music, etc., has been affected. But
I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show.
And I just want to register again, good grab on the thing I wanted you to remember. You did get it eventually. I was worried you were going to lose it completely, but you did not.
It was in there. It was rolling around in there somewhere. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Steve, of course, much quicker on the uptake than I. The Biden administration says Republican-led states don't have the legal standing to challenge its student debt relief program in court. Of course, standing referring to the harm a plaintiff must show that they are facing in order for a court to intervene. But Nebraska Solicitor General James Campbell says the administration is attempting to bypass Congress, and there is no statute that authorizes the sweeping action of canceling $400 billion in student loan debt. And confidence in the economy down for a second month in a row. The conference's Board Consumer Confidence Index fell to just under 103 in February. That's down 3 points from January, and it comes despite a slight improvement in inflation expectations. The defense in the Alex Murdaugh double murder trial resting its case. Meantime, the judge agreed to let jurors visit the Murdaugh family property where wife Maggie and son Paul were killed in 2021. That visit will happen when prosecutors are done with their reply case, and that happens this week. Officials in Beijing denouncing TikTok bans within American governments. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the move an abuse of state power by the United States to suppress foreign companies. These comments come as the House Foreign Affairs Committee is set to debate a proposed bill that would allow President Biden to ban TikTok altogether. Talking about U.S.-China relations. Seems like things are heating up in more than one area. And the man accused of murdering 3 Eastern Kentucky police officers last year has died in jail. This one may be a little suspicious. Lance Stores was being held in the Pike County Detention Center on charges that he killed 3 officers and a police canine during an ambush-style shooting in June in the town of Allen. Now he's dead in prison, and Floyd County Sheriff John Hunt confirmed that the 49-year-old committed suicide in jail. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, doesn't hold water, that story, huh?
Killed 3 cops and a police canine. I don't know. I think maybe you had a target on your back.
Yeah, that's somebody with a suicide wish, right?
Yeah.
Quote, suicide wish.
There is a little dog, a husky. He's got a facial deformity. It makes his grin, he is like a little dog smile, lopsided. He has been adopted by a family in Seattle. They drove a long way to do it, too. Sherry Langston and her children and their dog made the trek from Seattle to San Diego in a winter storm to adopt this little dog that they had only ever seen in pictures. They say that Harvey the Husky immediately caught their family's eye when they saw a post of him on the Humane Society's social media site. Langston said she saw the silly grin, knew they had to make a road trip of more than 1,200 miles to San Diego. So that's nice. And just so you know, in case people are still, in breakfast mode, today is National Pancake Day. This report is...
Yeah, I feel like the national days. Yeah.
You never know. But pancakes...
You just feel like, donut days, National Pancake Day. These are things that don't need national days. No. I'm just saying.
Yesterday was National Kahlua Day. So that was
Again, not something that necessarily needs a day. It's doing just fine without. I don't know. National Homeless Pet Day, National, you know what I mean? I'm okay with the disease days, raising awareness about leukemia, whatever it might be.
Right.
I feel like pancakes just don't need a day. That's all I'm saying. All right, it's great. They've got one. I'm not hating on them. I'm just saying it,
FYI, Mark Thompson, IHOP is celebrating by offering free short stacks. 3 buttermilk pancakes in your short stack for free. So there you go.
Wow.
You get something for nothing on Pancake Day.
I would, in a way, though, be disappointed if IHOP didn't offer,
step up on
National Pancake Day. All right.
This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, Steve Moskowitz is the one to call. He's got your back in a billion different ways. 888-TAX-DEAL, MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Call me a liar. Is that what you call him?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, your pants are on fire!
A Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret now?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective, how about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Yes. Welcome. Kim, Mark, Albert is on board. It is our Tuesday show, and glad you could be with us. We talked a lot about the drought and about the water situation in California and how it's far more complicated than any series of storms, wet as they are, even record-breaking as they might be, can actually solve. You can find that in the first hour. You can watch the show and replay, of course, on YouTube. And a quick note, yesterday's show was taken down by YouTube. This is one of the things we're learning about.
That's just
because of an SNL clip that we used. Remember, I was talking about a somewhat political edge that Woody Harrelson's monologue had, and it was tucked into this little 30-second run. We ran that 30 seconds, and NBC,
boom,
they took down the episode. That is really extreme, but we
nothing.
Yes, we re-uploaded it as a separate video. Thank you, Albert, for that hustle. But that's the reason. If you looked yesterday, the numbers way down, et cetera. Usually we have thousands of views, et cetera. But it didn't yesterday because we were off, essentially taken off by NBC. That's the reason. All right, without any further delay, just to explain that, we had a lot of email about it. This is a guy who we're just, it makes Tuesdays so enjoyable. Great to talk to the Pulitzer Prize winner, 4-time best-selling author. As I say, he joins us here now. He's David Cay Johnston. Hi, David Cay Johnston.
Mark and Kim.
Hi.
We have a question for you that came up last hour. Kim, if you could relate it to David Cay Johnston, because it's related to COVID and China, and then we'll get into Murdoch and Fox and a bunch of other stuff. But go ahead, Kim, please.
See, we have to ask it off the top before anybody forgets it, because we
I said, sure remember to ask David Cay Johnston, and then like 5 minutes later, I go, what was that question going to ask David Cay Johnston? And Kim couldn't remember it. All right, anyway, now here it is.
The question comes from the chat room, and it's regarding this report of low confidence that the Wuhan lab in China was the source of COVID. And a couple people in the chat today suggested that perhaps the release of this report was timed for some reason and could have something to do with U.S.-China relations, and wondered if you could comment.
Sure, it could. I mean, diplomacy is a very subtle and complex game of not saying what you really mean in a candid way. Why the Energy Department was involved in this is itself a question. And the fact that they said low confidence, that it was a leak, unintentional leak from this research lab, makes all of this sort of, why is this out there? I mean, and the underlying bottom truth is we don't know exactly how this virus spread, but what I can tell you is this: we've had a pandemic or a virus like this about every 7 years, and we're going to have many more pandemics going forward because nothing helps pernicious viruses spread around the planet than jet airplanes, and we got lots and lots of those carrying large numbers of people all over the world every hour of every day.
I thought for a hot second you were going to go down the chemtrail rabbit hole there, but you went to the right spot, I think.
There's a great, I mean, you should understand that at the end of the Planet of the Apes offshoot movie, where the ape somebody keeps in their home in Berkeley or Oakland becomes very smart. The ending scene of it, as the credits come up, is just will explain the whole thing to you very quickly and visually.
This is interesting. Remember when Bush said that they had high confidence that Iraq was developing nuclear weapons? Then it wasn't true. Low confidence holds as much salt as California's desalination plants. I get it. We're talking about
Yep.
All right. So that's that. And I want to get now to the revelations that are coming out of the defamation suit, essentially, the damages that I think are real. We've spoken of them before, to Dominion voting systems. They're they really were smeared. They're I think, legitimately a business that can claim damages, largely a trail of damages that lead back to Fox News Channel. Right. So the revelations are coming out in testimony from Murdoch and from other luminaries at Fox that essentially point to the fact that they knew they were lying about issues involving Trump's 2020 election loss.
So a little bit of constitutional law background to put this in context as to what's happening. The First Amendment, Congress shall pass no law limiting speech, applies to government. It does not apply to private businesses. So what you're seeing Ron DeSantis do in banning books and threatening to prosecute professors and teachers, I think that ultimately will be held to be violations of the First Amendment. If you are using the public airwaves to broadcast, you are over-the-air radio or TV, you're subject to restrictions because that's a public airway and you have a license in the public interest, necessity, and convenience to use those airwaves. Fox operates over cable. It doesn't broadcast. And Fox, quote unquote, news, as such, is not subject to the First Amendment. So let's eliminate, that fundamental issue here. But there is clearly an issue about limits on free speech, and there is no absolute right in the Constitution. Every right in the Constitution is subject to limits, and the Supreme Court has made this clear again and again and again. For example, while Congress can pass no law, the government can censor reports of the movements of troops ahead of the movements of those troops. So no right, and that includes the Second Amendment, is absolute. Now, in the case of Fox, their problem is the 1964 case, Sullivan versus New York Times, in which a group of people opposed to segregation in the South took out a full-page ad in the New York Times about the Birmingham police commissioner and his conduct. And there was a factual error, a minor factual error. Let me be clear. The thrust of the ad was quite accurate, but they made a small factual error. He sued. And the Supreme Court held that the standard for a public official, not a private person who doesn't get involved in the fray, but a public official, as would be the case with an elected police commissioner, or appointed police commissioner for that matter, was actual malice. And actual malice means you knew what you said was a lie and you said it anyway, or you didn't care. You had reckless disregard. Anybody who's watched Law and Order knows that they often rely on New York State's reckless disregard statute to build a case about who's going to be prosecuted in one of those fictional counts. And here, I think it's beyond any reasonable doubt that Fox meets the actual malice standard. The depositions and the emails show that Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson, among others, were saying in private emails to each other that were obtained through the discovery process in the lawsuit, this is crazy. There was no stolen election. It turns out, and I didn't know this until after the depositions came out, that Sidney Powell said that she had proof of election fraud. It turns out to come from a woman who is so delusional. She says the wind talks to her. Something Fox didn't mention, but it turns out knew at the time. So this is a loser for Fox. Both sides put out statements last night. Fox said the lawsuit was an abomination, an offense to the Constitution, utter rubbish. The issue will be, does it go to trial? And if it goes to trial, will Dominion seek and be able to obtain punitive damages? Because the actual damages to Dominion, which didn't have a lot of clients in the U.S., in fact, it may have only had Los Angeles County, are not that significant, only to its future business.
Well, you could argue, David, based specifically on that the future business, it was damaged by this. I mean, essentially, their business name was smeared.
I think there's no question that Dominion will, in many jurisdictions, be rejected out of hand by people who believe Fox News or harbor some doubts. And all of this was completely false, and the Fox people knew it. Now, there's an effort by the right. Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump are leaders in this to change the rules in America. Donald Trump said, both as a candidate and as president, they shouldn't be able to write stories about me that I don't approve. Well, that's Russia today. There is no journalism in Russia. In fact, I went to Washington, D.C. Sunday and spoke to 10 Norwegian journalists who were here to learn about investigative reporting. A group organization there that has invited me to Norway, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. And one of the journalists said, there is no more journalism in Russia. In fact, the New York Times Moscow bureau is currently located in Istanbul, because if you try to do journalism, they not only can, but will arrest you under a law that basically says the state has issued the truth and you will bow to the truth or you will go to prison. And that's what Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis want, because they cannot, in the marketplace of ideas, win. So they've got to find a way to overcome the idea of free speech.
Of course, that's true. And Fox was, a signatory to that entire philosophy, which was associated, let's face it, David, with ratings. They were getting great ratings off of Trump and the Trump acolytes that they had on, and their effort to maintain that. And that's something else that's come out in this testimony is the fact that at the time this stuff came up, Mark, Fox was facing challenges from a number of organizations that were far to the right of where Fox is. And I think it's become very clear from what's come out in the discovery that they were worried that they would lose their position. In fact, by playing to the audience and doing what they did, by lying left and right to an audience that doesn't care, apparently, or doesn't have the critical thinking skills to understand they're being lied to, they have immensely expanded Fox operation. There's a new graphic that came out today showing unique visitors to Fox, over 100 million a month. And the next organization is Epoch Times from the Gulanfang religious group in China. And they're at like 9 million. And you have to add up roughly the next 15 or 20 to equal Fox. By the way, InfoWars has fallen away to hundreds of thousands from its larger audience in the past.
following the revelations about the jury verdicts in the case of the Sandy Hook shooting.
Sure. And
this
his posts look more pathetic.
By Fox. And the fact is, even if they had to pay $1.6 billion, that's pocket change.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, well,
wow.
It might maybe a little more than pocket change, but it's just a ding in their finances. It's not significant to them. And insurance will probably cover a good part of it. Maybe not, but they have insurance. Whether they can collect on is another matter.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that next. I'm glad you addressed it. Murdoch testified that he believed early on that everything was on the up and up with the election, and that he doubted claims of election fraud from the very beginning. This is Rupert Murdoch, owner of Fox. Asked about Dominion. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and Fox is continuing on this path now, and we see this with the Norfolk Southern train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. And I think it's very significant to understand what Fox is doing here and how the news media is missing, in my view, the larger issue. The Trump administration moved to remove everything it could think of that Obama had done. If Obama did it, it's bad. And the Obama administration had moved to improve rail safety in America. We have frequent derailments in this country, far more than we need to have. We don't have sufficient rules on maintaining safe railroads, and we allow all sorts of dangerous cargo like Bakken oil shale, which has not been emulsified and therefore is prone to huge fires if any ignition begins. Now, in the case of the East Palestine issue, if you turn on Tucker Carlson, as I do, the victims there were white people. This is part of the Biden administration plot to replace rural and Republican white people. And they are the victims here through this plot. Now, how exactly the Biden administration was involved when there was an overheated bearing on the train in telling the train engineers to keep going is ridiculous. I mean, that it is so absurd. But Fox is pushing this idea. And here's what is not being reported, Mark. In my most recent book, The Big Cheat, there's a chapter, I thought it was called Bomb Trains. I just looked at it. It's called Dangerous Favors. When Donald Trump won the nomination, one of the very first people who went to see him, or I guess it was won the presidency through the Electoral College, was the richest man in Japan, Mayoshi Son, who owns SoftBank. And a SoftBank subsidiary named Fortress loaned the money to Donald Trump to build his Chicago hotel in downtown Chicago. So there's a very deep business relationship here between Trump and Mr. Son. Well, Mr. Son later got involved in issues involving the rail business. And you can see the Trump reasonably view, I think, the Trump administration backing off and being lax about all sorts of rail safety issues that are needed as a favor to a man whom he was financially entangled with, as, by the way, was Jared Kushner. So that's the story that's being missed. When you look at it, when Donald Trump goes to the train scene, and hands out his bottled water, which he hasn't sold for over a decade, and claims this is Biden's fault, that gets coverage. What doesn't get coverage is, oh, by the way, these lax rules trace back to a loan Donald Trump got from this Japanese entrepreneur and who sought more favors, particularly involving rail safety. And in The Big Cheat, there's a whole chapter called Dangerous Favors that lays all this out from the public record. It's not, I think this, it's here is what the public record shows.
I'm embarrassed to say I read The Big Cheat, and I didn't remember that relationship he had with a Japanese financier.
I can't remember all of it. I don't know how you would.
Anyway, clearly they're political favors here, and they're rolling back. I'm glad you touched on it, and we touched on it last time, the rolling back of those protections and regulations. Before I let you go, I want to mention one other thing, and I thought of you particularly because you're a distinguished journalist, and this has been around a while, this thing that happens where there's a revolving door between lobbyists and commentators. And CNN has the lobbyist from Norfolk Southern on their show as the expert on the train derailment. He's a guy who has tried to normalize the entire thing. He's said any number of things that would seem to toss blame away from regulators who rolled back those regulations you're talking about when it comes to safety and the transporting of toxic materials, all the way to, well, this stuff happens all the time. That's what I mean when I say you're trying to normalize. You say, we're making a big deal out of this, but the reality is sadly, this happens in a society that needs a lot of the stuff that we have to train around.
Well, train derailments happen all the time in America. I agree with that. In fact, trains are more dangerous in terms of lives lost per ton mile of freight than truckers on the highway. But there is a real serious problem here with people who come on the air and they're not fully identified. David Barstow won a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage in the New York Times somewhere early in this century, where he showed that all of these retired military officers who were appearing on TV and they were saying, oh, this is a great weapons system and this is a great policy, weren't disclosing that they were on the boards of directors or were consultants to big defense contractors like Lockheed and Raytheon. When people appear on TV, if it says contributor, that means they're paid. People like me, I will not accept payment from the networks, partly because it limits you to whatever one channel you're involved with, but we're called guests. So recognize contributor and guest. But to this day, despite the scandal the New York Times exposed years ago, we continue to have this problem with the networks not fully vetting people and not identifying them. I don't have any problem with Norfolk Southern's PR people or former pay. Oh, by the way, understand where this person is coming from and who that person is. I think that's a critical element, and we're not seeing it, Mark, and we should be very worried about how people are misinformed as a result.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought this Scott Gottlieb to television sets. He was regularly on Face the Nation. He was on CNBC a lot. And they always identified him as the board of directors of Pfizer. This guy, again, on this State of the Union show that's hosted by Dana Bash, was part of this roundtable discussion, and he tried to put blame on the Biden administration. He said there's plenty of blame to go around on this, but then he started blaming the administration. And the reality is that, as you've suggested, there were significant rollbacks in basic regulations in the transport of all these materials that led to this accident.
That's right. Well, and to be clear, much of the news coverage is focused on the narrow issue that the rules on modern braking systems would not have applied because this was vinyl chloride, not Bakken shale or liquefied natural gas or other highly volatile stuff. Of course, the question which should be asked is, gee, why wasn't vinyl chloride included in this? In fact, why don't we just have modern braking systems on all trains? So you're carrying coal, which is unlikely to erupt. You're carrying wheat, which unless something happens, is not going to burn in a crash. It's just going to be a pile on the ground. But why don't we have modern braking systems for all trains? Why don't we have the kind of crossing guards that you will see if you drive a car in the United Kingdom, where nobody gets killed at a railroad crossing in England, unless they go to great effort to get themselves killed, because it isn't an arm that comes down and which can bobble back up. That was another Pulitzer Prize winning series in the New York Times by my friend Walt Bogdanich. But they have a gate that comes and blocks you. It's like a cattle gate on each side. You cannot go through. Why don't we have these things? Well, because the rail industry, which is built on taxpayer gifts of land and money going back to 170, 180 years, they don't want it and they lobby for it. And the revolving door of corporate officials become government officials, go back to the corporation, perpetuates that. And by the way, there's a wonderful website called the Revolving Door Project, which tracks people going in and out of government. Both parties have this happen to them. This is not a partisan issue. This is a poor governance issue.
It's a problem, though, because it does affect the dialogue and the conversation. And even as Bash was saying, Well, these regulations were rolled back. The regulations that might have affected this in a positive way would have prevented maybe some of this damage. Were rolled back. He said, that's looking back. We have to look forward, and it's about these communities. And the Biden administration is not taking the remediation of the situation seriously. He really this guy is an aggressive voice along the lines of, I was mentioning Chris Christie in the first hour. There are a lot of high-profile examples of guys like this, lobbyists for industry or for politics and political philosophies, and they're not. The fact that Chris Christie is on that ABC This Week show and he's running for president, likely running for president, and he's good, David. He comes across
Chris
well.
Chris Christie's on for the same reason I'm often on shows. There is a skill in learning to talk broadcast, to talk radio or TV. And Chris Christie really has that skill. He knows how to talk television. And that's one of the key reasons that they have him on. And also, he's not crazy. You can like or dislike Chris Christie's policies, but he is a rational, sane person they can rely on to be rational and sane. And that's an important note. By the way, just let me add one thing before we go. All of these challenges by Republicans that Pete Buttigieg has failed here. He has virtually no authority. He's the transportation secretary, but the National Transportation Safety Board is an independent board he has no authority over. The Federal Railway Administration is an independent board he has no authority over. The organization that you could raise questions about, it seems to me, is the Environmental Protection Agency and its role. And then the Laura Ingraham on Fox and others have been saying, well, it's clear that Joe Biden doesn't care about America. He was in Kyiv instead of going to the scene. When the president goes to the scene of a disaster, it diverts resources from what needs to be done. Presidents shouldn't show up right away. They should wait several days, if not a week or more. You want to show up in some cases to say, we care about this. But there's no evidence that the Biden administration doesn't care. That would be an absurdity in the case of Joe Biden.
That point was made particularly because of Trump's visit there. And what would have been is that you talk about a contrast. The one thing I think Biden's superpower is that he's really got a heart. You can disagree with policies, you can disagree with style, et cetera, but I think he really does, quote, feel for the people affected by catastrophes of the sort.
Well, this wasn't George W. Bush doing a flyover in Air Force One during Hurricane Katrina, or right after Hurricane Katrina. And the federal government ordering hundreds of 18-wheelers filled with ice, one of them driven by one of my sons.
Is that right?
Yeah, and he sat there for 4 days with his diesel engine running, keeping the ice cold, and then they were told to go back to where they came from, and they dumped the ice. They never delivered it.
What?
So
unbelievable. Look, love visiting with you. Feel like we really hooked up on a bunch of different stories here today. I really feel good about our conversation. Thank you, David Cay Johnston. You can read some of the work that David started as a co-founder of DC Report at dcreport.org. In fact, there are a couple of new columns there that I didn't even get to today that you'll really enjoy. But there's all kinds of stuff on that website. And, of course, David's books. You heard about The Big Cheat. And
Adam Leipzig, the new publisher, is proving to be a real publisher, unlike me. I was sort of an amateur.
No, it's really good. I agree. DC Report is still rocking, man. dcreport.org. So David Cay Johnston, co-founder, and, of course, Pulitzer Prize winner, 4-time best-selling author. Can't wait till next week. Thank you, my friend.
Take care.
David Cay Johnston, everybody. Nice job. Right. Yeah, we got that question in that, yes. A little late on the applause, though, don't you think, Albert?
You got to double down, Mark.
Just saying that we had the guy, when I go, I kind of try to extend it. I say, David Cay Johnston, thank you so much. Nice job. And I kind of wave. I was kind of trying to give you some more time for the applause, you see. That was well thought out, actually. It seemed spontaneous. And then when the applause wasn't there.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Kim, you see, there is a method here. There's a method. Smash the like button for David Cay Johnston. It is so great to have him in.
With your iron rod.
A quick mention of what's coming up tomorrow. It's going to be a great show, and it is packed with people and guests. Albert, I wonder if you could detail some of those guests for us.
Yeah, so we thought we double booked, but I did check our records, and we have John Rothman at the usual time, 10:35.
Okay.
All right.
Then we have Monty Schultz that is coming up next at 11, and then
That's
we have
Charles
Grad,
Schultz's son.
Charles
So cool.
Schultz's son.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
And then,
Peanuts creator, of course.
How do we get him? Boy,
from the
we're
North Bay, right?
we're fancy.
Charles
Yeah.
Schultz.
Yeah, Santa Rosa.
Right. And then who?
And then I think this is your friend, right? Gina Grad.
Gina Grad. Well, Albert, I have a lot of friends, but they happen to be Jim Avila is a friend of mine. Okay, but you don't say, "Oh, now I'm going to bring my friend on." Jim Avila, you give she's an author and a distinguished news person. Formerly Adam Carolla's news person. She was Kim McAllister for Adam Carolla.
Okay. So I should be intimidated, is what you're saying.
But let me say this, Albert. I don't want to be too tough on Albert in this moment.
And Mark Thompson. And friend of Mark Thompson.
And a friend. That's the way to do it. You tack it on at the end. But she is great. You'll love her.
Yeah.
And you'll love her, Kim, for sure. So very well done.
I did re-upload the news theme, so I'm really excited to see what
we're excited. We have the over-the-top medieval times news theme about to come up. And thanks for hitting the like button. We're so excited to have you on board.
With your iron rod.
Even as we're on a backup computer today, I'm going to totally backup set up the main computer. Of course, because it's brand new, why shouldn't it completely die on me? It's completely dead, completely dark. So
is that why we're playing loosey-goosey with processes and protocols today?
Yeah, exactly. We do not, All right, nothing is guaranteed, as Kim explained in the first hour. Anything could happen in this life. Kim likes to remind us of that. All right, we'll continue. Kim's News next. Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. Let us begin with this report from CNN, which is reporting today that the United States is warning it will target Chinese firms or people involved in any effort to send lethal aid to Russia for its war in Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken underlining arming Russia's forces would cause China serious problems around the world. He said, and I quote, "China can't have it both ways when it comes to the Russian aggression in Ukraine. It can't be putting forward peace proposals on one hand while actually feeding the flames of fire that Russia has started with the other." End quote. The U.S. Marshal Service says a cyber attack has exposed fugitive data and other sensitive information. A Marshal spokesperson saying hackers gained access to a standalone system, which was then taken offline for forensic analysis February 17th. An official with the agency telling the New York Times the attack didn't compromise any data on the witness protection program. Well, that was a close call, I'll tell you. We had talked a little bit earlier about the end of emergency protocols for the pandemic in California. And I guess you could say California is officially moving on from the pandemic. The COVID state of emergency ends today, 3 years after it began. Governor Gavin Newsom calling it an effective and necessary tool to protect millions of people. He said we wouldn't have gotten to this point without it. All tests, vaccines, and treatments from the federal stockpile will continue to be free as long as the supply lasts. And then you got to pay up. The state just topped 100,000 COVID deaths last week. No applause necessary for that one. You hear that? 100,000 Californians. People in California died during the pandemic. So it's a pretty dangerous day on some Northern California roadways. There is a blizzard warning in the Sierra, and it's a rough one, I'll tell you. The roadways, Interstate 80, Highway 50, Caltrans saying anyone waiting on those roads should just turn around and go somewhere safe. This blizzard warning in the Sierra remains in effect until tomorrow morning. Wind and snow just making it nearly impossible to drive. Crews shut down Interstate 80 and Highway 50 last night. They're reassessing conditions every few hours. There are dozens of schools closing again in that area. And just another opportunity to show you a photo. David sent this picture in from Placerville. So thank you, David. The snow on the ground kind of matches the Dalmatians. It looks
That
kinda
is a
cute.
great picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you for
wow.
sending that in. Again, that's the snowfall in Placerville and the Dalmatians sniffing at the snow. So that's kind of cute. Speaking of snow, look at Los Angeles. You can see, as Jefferson Graham says, the sugar on the hills in the background. More rain and snow expected to blanket Southern California today. But for Los Angeles, the storm could become historic. Why? The National Weather Service predicts temperatures will stay below 60 degrees through tomorrow, and that would make 8 straight days, marking the longest cold streak in 35 years. Meantime, San Bernardino County declared a state of emergency after some mountain communities were stranded and snowed in those areas. But what a picture, I'll tell you. Shareholders are suing Tesla and its CEO, Elon Musk. He's in court an awful lot. The proposed class action suit filed in a federal court in San Francisco this week accuses Tesla of defrauding the shareholders with false and misleading statements about self-driving technology potentially linked to several fatal accidents. The plaintiffs say it's driven the stock price down, leading to significant losses. Here's something that I feel we should all, it's kind of a common sense, right? I mean, when you get your advice from a real doctor, it's probably more valuable than any advice you could get from the internet. But health experts are saying officially now, they don't recommend using YouTube to find the best sleep advice. Researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston say they discovered an alarming amount of medical misinformation on YouTube videos about sleep disorders. The study says YouTube videos often don't provide enough detail and they contain clickbait.
That's not fake. That's real.
Yeah, I believe that.
Don't ask Dr. YouTube or Dr. Google. If you really have a question, call your own doctor. And here's a kind of an update, ending on a positive note, with actor Jeremy Renner. He is making real progress in his recovery after a snowplow accident nearly took his life in January. Renner posted a video to Instagram of him working out on a stationary bike. The caption reads, "Whatever it takes." The Marvel actor broke more than 30 bones. 30 bones while he was trying to help his nephew stuck in the snow. Renner ended up getting run over by his own snowplow. Again, recovering, back to working out, and feeling better. So good for him.
Yeah.
And this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, Steve Moskowitz is the one to call. He's at 888-TAX-DEAL and MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Everything is going extremely well. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
I apologize to every preacher and pastor.
What he's got going here is a situation.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
No, no, no.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah, we are here. We are glad you are here as well at Mark Thompson Show for Tuesday. We've overcome some technical hurdles. I don't want to dwell on them. Although I did notice people suggesting, Kim, this might involve you or Albert, that I was a bit testy earlier.
You do get that way. The tech issues bring out the worst in you. You get annoyed to no end.
There's never been anything like this.
Snappy, it's snippy, and
it is true that
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
I like to concentrate on content, on the show, on finding stuff to talk about, on takes associated with things going on, and the technical stuff really does tilt me, as we say in poker. It tilts my head. It it ruins my ability to focus on the things I enjoy focusing on. So
I hear you.
So we had a meltdown at the reactor here in Mark Thompson Central today. And so we're on a bunch of backup thing. And Tony, who is great, and he's kind of like the emergency fireman we call, he is sick. And so we can't fix it it'll be just like this tomorrow as well. But at least we're connecting with you. We're really happy to be connected. I think in general it's pretty much the same show. So
there's about at least 200 more people watching than have clicked the like button. So I just want to remind you guys, click that little thumbs up button if you could for us. We'd love to have it.
With your
we'd love to have your
rod.
support. Yes.
Yes, we would. That's Kim being testy about the like button. How's that?
We're all testy.
No, but it really does help us. It's a weird thing in the YouTube world. I told you about what happened yesterday where they took the episode away.
Yeah.
Because of the use of 30 seconds of Saturday Night Live. NBC had the episode taken down. I mean, they didn't even give us the option of being demonetized. They took the episode down. So there's certain things about YouTube that we're learning. And one of them, and I haven't really learned everything there is to know about this, is that the algorithm they use, the mathematical programs they use in terms of assigning a value to our show is associated with how many likes versus how many views.
Right.
So you have 3,000 views and you have only 200 likes, et cetera. If you have 3,000 views. So that's why that's important.
So clickety. And also, what we haven't done is go through, if you'd like to, the folks that have kicked in, which there's a lot today.
Yeah, I really thank everybody who steps up and leaves us a super sticker and super chats. We're crowdfunded, so sadly we need to ask you to donate if you can. We appreciate it, and we also have Patreon and PayPal too. But look at this, Andreas, Mark, I'm sorry, I'm too busy with both parents. Wow, I believe it. First, mom, 4 weeks in the hospital. Now dad, 4 days, bleeding blood. I'm sorry I can't be there for you all the time. Yeah, we missed Andreas last couple of days, actually. He's a regular viewer, and he's a contributor. Thank you so much, Andreas. Look, we know what aging parents and aging itself can do in terms of challenges, so we appreciate you being here at all. And there's another $10 from Andreas. Speaking of this issue, wow, thanks to all, I'm blessed and enjoying every moment, good or bad. Wow, that's really cool. Seems like a cool guy, that Andreas, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, he's clearly a very generous guy. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But I was going to do a segment, and we are going to do it. I might even do it next week, on these end-of-life decisions you have to make. But it doesn't have to be a downer segment. It's a real thing that we have to deal with a lot of the way through the last years of lives, our own and those of loved ones. And I'm going to get a doctor on next week. I had a really good conversation with him, and I think he has some good perspectives on this, and you might as well. So if between now and then you want to share them with me, it's the markthompsonshow@gmail.com. Thanks to all. I'm blessed, enjoying every moment. Lori Fuchsia. Lori, that's in honor of Andreas and his family. Isn't that nice? Wow,
really
that's
nice.
Really great. $20 from Lori. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you so much.
This is how the people in the Mark Thompson Show community and the chat room have really kind of bonded and care about each other. And that really is lovely. Thank you, Lori Above the Bar. We appreciate that.
Yeah, that really is right.
Big shout out.
Forget that is Lori Above the Bar, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Above the bar. Catherine Beer, 1999. What up, Catherine? Thanks for that.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you. That's a Dave Chappelle. Thank you. That's really cool. It really does help us. It's a weird thing. It's but every little bit does help. Kevin Hobbs is another Hall of Famer.
Big shout out.
2477. Thank you, Kevin. Big shout out to Dan Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, what can we say? When we have Thompson Terrace fully completed, you will have a statue in
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
in the Thompson Terrace town square. It's just before you get too excited, it's a virtual, so you'll be able to get there from wherever you are. We'll send you a link, and you can make a speech at the unveiling. Al Anonymous, thank you for continuing your show on YouTube. Yeah, thank you.
Where are my weed
Thank you,
smokers
420. Yeah, where are my weed smokers 420?
Well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We're excited. Every challenge we try to tackle and continue. $4.99 from Walter. 5 on the backup to the backup computer. Aloha, Walter.
Thank
Aloha.
you so much.
Mahalo, Walter.
Walter really is in Hawaii, huh?
Yeah.
That's wild. Love that. Love it.
Love that. We have a
Al
lot of
Anonymous
listeners in Hawaii.
For Tony's medication and sick leave. That's cool.
Oh,
I'm
that's
envious.
nice.
There's never been anything like this.
$5. Thank you, Al. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Yeah. Very, very cool. TG, Kim, you rock. $15
thanks,
from
TG.
Kim. How about that? TG
That's
loves Kim.
nice. You just made me feel happy inside.
What?
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you, guys. Thank you, all of you. By the way, I just want to mention it again. There's PhotoWalks TV with Jefferson Graham just smashing the like button. Thank you, Jeff.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
He'll be here on Thursday. Isn't that right? Yeah, Thursday. I wanted to mention that we do have a Patreon and PayPal set up, and you can just go to themarkthompsonshow.com and click through to that. And that's a great way to show your support on an ongoing basis. So themarkthompsonshow.com, click contribute. The last thing I'll say about the show is that, well, there it is, that when you get to it, you'll see that. Also, you can click through to the merch, also on the site. Yeah, the getmarkmerch.com. So all those ways you can support the show and do it in fun ways. We're closing in on 10,000 subscribers.
Ooh, that's exciting. What are we
yeah.
going to do to celebrate when we hit 10? Are we going to is there confetti poppers? Are we drinking champagne? We should
nothing.
Mark the moment.
In the tradition of the show, we probably will do nothing, but I think we will do something. I think we're going to have a...
We should send the 10,000... Maybe the 10,000 subscribers should get a Thompson filtration system or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Albert probably has planned something very elaborate. I don't know what it is, but
we should have the 10,000th subscriber on the show. Yeah,
it's hard to know who that 10,000th subscriber is, but that's a really good idea. It's a fun idea. But I think that we will do what will be likely a couple of weeks of shows with special guests to celebrate 10,000 and get us to 20,000. I mean, it is really a journey that we're taking with you, and it's a new platform for me. I've been on TY
11,780, which is one more than we have.
We just need 11,780, the same number that Trump wanted. Yeah, that's all we need.
I think we need to maybe celebrate Al Anonymous, who's got a shifty little plan to go to another YouTube site and say, hey, listen to Mark Thompson. Look at that.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah. That's nice.
It's a wild idea, but it just might work. I really think that's funny.
Wild idea, but it just might work.
Oh, Vilma with another, since we just got done with it, $1.99 from Vilma.
Thank you, Vilma.
Let's help Mark hit the 10K mark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We, most of you who are watching right now are subscribed, so you really, you can't subscribe again, I don't think. But I really appreciate you getting the word out, sharing whatever.
Thank you.
Share the David Cay Johnston segment or whatever. Thank you for the $9.99 and the $1.99. That's when you do. I'm no expert, but I think that's like $12 or something.
Like back to back. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you, Vilma. I don't have a list. I just have a total number, commentator. Yeah. I don't have a list of subscribers. But
I do think it would be cool if we did a live Friday Fabulous Florida in Florida. I'm not saying for 10,000, that's pretty soon, and we got a lot going on right now, but maybe one of these milestones we have to do it in Florida.
It's kind of an expensive plane ticket.
Yeah, geez, look at Albert spending all the money from Vilma's money. Vilma sends $13 and already Albert's got buying a drink in the lounge at United Airlines.
Right.
But I do think we will plan special events. We're already in the process of planning special events, so that will happen. But I also want to mention one last thing, and this is much longer about subscribers and about being part of the show that way than I'd have planned on. But sponsorship opportunities exist on this show right now. And if you think your business or your service, I mean, maybe, I don't know if you have a service-related job, it might be, you might be, well, any number of the, I know I get correspondences from people who have cleaning services and also have water remediation services and have smoke remediation. These I had correspondences with some of you. Landscaping businesses and this sort of thing. If there's anything around the Bay Area, particularly, we have a lot of audience in the Bay Area. Yeah, I think you could benefit from a sponsorship here, but you can decide. There's no pressure to sponsor, but if you think it might be something of interest to you, you might have any number of businesses that might benefit from a lift and from visibility on this show. Send a correspondent to me and to Kim as well.
Yeah.
It's the Mark Thompson Show at Gmail. The Mark Thompson Show at Gmail. So email us there and we can get you information and you can decide. It'll be really great to have you as a sponsor. Click the freaking like button, people. What's wrong with you? Says John Anderson. Yeah. Now I'm almost out of time, Albert, but I really wanted to get it in. It's really a law and disorder stories from the sky. Can I do it quickly? I'll do it as a law and disorder. Is that cool?
I like it.
All right, Albert. You'll handle the
criminal justice system.
Close.
The people, pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
A New Jersey dude tried to board a flight with an AR-15 rifle, a taser, and a fake U.S. Marshal's badge. Yeah. That's a strong combination, I got to be honest with you.
I mean, I like how you go full bore there. There's no holding back.
Wild idea, but it just might work.
Here's what I would say. If you're going to try this, and I wouldn't recommend it, but if you are going to try it, with an AR-15 rifle, a taser, I would bring a fake U.S. Marshal's badge. In other words, I appreciate that. To be fair, you need a fake law enforcement badge to get away with the other two things.
Well, sure, yeah.
The taser and the AR-15. So I get that. During routine screening of checked luggage that was destined for Fort Lauderdale, so this really had even a Friday Fabulous Florida component, TSA agents discovered two 40 caliber Glock magazines, each containing 15 rounds of 40 caliber ammunition.
There's never been anything like this.
Of the baggage revealed a ballistic vest carrier that displayed the words Deputy Marshal. The U.S. Marshals confirmed that the guy's never been employed by the agency. After the discovery, agencies responded to the gate where the flight was scheduled to depart, and the dude told officers he didn't have law enforcement credentials or firearm ID cards from any state.
My bad. I'm sorry.
His luggage was taken off the aircraft, and officers found in the luggage an AR-15 rifle, a 40 caliber handgun, a taser, a spring-loaded knife, an expandable baton, a .308 caliber rifle, and a United States Marshal credential with his name and picture on it, along with a badge. Very, very strong. Very, very strong. He is in police custody. And that, my friends, is Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey,
let's be careful out there.
The last thing I'll leave you with is the Dilbert dude, Scott Adams. He lives in the East Bay, you know.
Yeah.
After his racist comments, he says he's lost 80% of his income.
Sayonara, sucker.
Adams facing serious repercussions
nothing.
following his recent comments that he's made on YouTube. We played them for you yesterday. He talked about black people as a hate group and this sort of thing. He urged white people to get the hell away from black people. That's a quote. Well, newspapers like the LA Times, USA Today, and USA Today has a network of papers. They all dropped him, and they're not going to run his strip and not work with him anymore. The big newspapers are 80% of your income, he said. So the 20% of the newspapers are now 80% of the income. The 20% that are the important ones are the urban big city newspapers. They're the ones that are going to cancel first, and they have. Already what has been announced, he continued, is about 80% of my income. So it's a fall from grace for he's wildly wealthy, but I'm sure he doesn't want to get canceled that way. The Dilbert creator, Scott Adams.
Here's an idea. That's a wild idea, but it just might work. How about don't be a racist a-hole? I don't know.
And with that, Albert, take us out with a little bit of our, because I think we've stepped up today, all of us.
And thank you, Calvin, for the $5.
Oh, Calvin, thank you, my friend. Love it. Sorry, I can't see the stream right now. Calvin Wong, who is our unofficial associate producer. Really, really cool. All the merch you see behind me and around me is available to you. The Mark Thompson Throw Pillow. Might I interest you in it? It's one of our finest, hottest items. The coffee cups, as you've seen, the tote bag, and, of course, the hoodie. You can find it all at getmarkmerch.com. There it is. Thank you, Albert. Good hustle, Albert, today. Good hustle, Kim. We came close to a total slip off the ledge, but we hung on and pulled ourselves back up. We can all be proud on the show, and we can be proud of the audience who stepped up today as well. Thank you all. Tomorrow, it's a big show.
I'm Shadow
Many guests.
For the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
David Katz, Gina Grad, Charles Schultz's son, John Rothman, all of that tomorrow. And until then, bye-bye.